You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning, Sudbury. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad you're here with us live on CKLU 96.7 FM, cklu.ca. You can stream us there. You just click on the Radio Player Canada app logo and you can stream us. You can also download the same Radio Player Canada app that the logo represents, and you can take us with you, listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. You can also just do that with CKLU in general. The great programming that we have here, a volunteer-run station that's been with you since 1984, started in a little trailer on the university campus on the hill, Laurentian University, Ramsey Lake Road. And ever since we've been on the air, so it's quite a bit of time. It's volunteer run. It's run on a shoestring budget, and if you feel that CKLU is indeed worth supporting, all you have to do is go to their website, and it's very easy to support them monetarily just by a donation. Submit an idea for a show if you'd like to share your talents on air. Just email gm@cklu, and you can let them know your idea for a show. And also, they got merch there to help support the station. Get your CKLU t-shirts, mugs, and swag, all that stuff, CKLU on cklu.ca. We're also streaming on Facebook Live, facebook.com/Sudbury News, YouTube Live at youtube.com/Sudbury News. Thank you to the YouTube and Facebook moderators. You have a job to do. My hat's off to you. It's not easy to do. So thank you. And also all of you, make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, and especially comment on the show, as we will do our best to get your comments in on the radio to verbalize them. And also for those who are watching on the live stream, you'll be able to read the comments if we're not able to get to them. So there is a definite value in doing that. You can also see the shows after they are live because they are up on our Facebook page. Also on Sudbury.news. Just click on Sudbury News Talk and you can see us there. Good morning, Cliff. Hope you're doing good today. It's a wet one. School buses are canceled. Good morning, Shane. Hope you're having a good one as well. School buses are canceled this morning due to how wet it is and being cautious, overly cautious that it is indeed slippery due to the precipitation out there. So school buses in Sudbury and area canceled this morning. You can check that out on our Facebook page. We shared Sudbury.com's announcement from the consortium that they shared from them. And just thought I'd get that out of the way, but that is a segue into our weather segment anyways. We got weather, we got a little bit of sports. We have Billy joining us momentarily, and then we also have our special guest today, Ward 7 Councillor Natalie Labby, who will be here to talk about her new appointment being elected and how she is feeling as a new councillor here in the city, and what are some of her thoughts with that transition. Also, we're going to ask her some questions, some of the questions that you have been talking about with us for the last little while that are important to you, and some of the stories that we shared. So if you want to see some of the things we're going to be talking about, you go on our Facebook page and you can see some of the city-related stories we've already shared. We'll go through some of those, especially Sudbury's emergency plan for the how we're going to deal with the emergency services and which ones will be cut and what that means to us. She is on that committee, and so she definitely knows all about that. Good morning, Judy. Thanks for being with us. We got an exciting show for you today. Let's get started with some weather. We'll be back with a little bit of sports, and then Billy and Natalie right after this. Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Current conditions, 2 degrees out there, very mild, light rain, and that's why buses have been canceled this morning, just anticipating possibility of ice due to the already snow on the ground, and then rain on top of that makes for pretty slippery conditions, and make sure to drive according to the conditions as usual. Today, periods of rain with periods of snow early this morning, and periods of drizzle late this morning and this afternoon. The wind will be gusting up to 50 kilometers per hour, high of +5 today. Tonight, periods of rain continue, or drizzle, changing then to flurries this evening and ending after midnight, then cloudy with a 40% chance of flurries. Wind gusting up to 50 kilometers from the northwest this evening, and light overnight. Low of -13 overnight. Wind chill will be, low of -13 later today. It is actually cooling off later today. So maybe that's what they're anticipating as well, the drive home and things icing up. It's going to get colder in the afternoon, low of -13 today. So it's going to go from +5 to -13. Also overnight, -18. And then Thursday, tomorrow, mainly cloudy. Wind will be a moderate 15 kilometers per hour. High of -8, wind chill -18 in the morning, and then -11 in the afternoon. A look at your extended forecast is tomorrow, high of -8, mainly cloudy. Friday, 40% chance of flurries, high of -11. Saturday, 40% chance of flurries, high of -2. Sunday's the same. 40% chance of flurries, high of -2. Monday, 60% chance of flurries, high of -4, and then going dipping down again to a high of -11, and flurries forecast for next Tuesday. A look at your satellite shows a lot of the precipitation action coming from the west as usual across the Great Lakes and bringing us that precipitation. Cloudy across the board, all of northern Ontario for those listening to us on the radio. That's your Sudbury weather. It's brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with sports right after this. And just recently, the Sudbury versus the Pros versus Joe's basketball game went ahead on December the 29th, raised a heck of a lot of money, $35,000, going to benefit some local charities. Those include Neo Kids Foundation, Northern Ontario Families of Children with Cancer, the United Way, Sudbury Manitoulin Children's Foundation, and the Human League. So $35,000 to be distributed across those various charities. Always a good time when we can mix, our sports with raising money. I know Dario just started the new charity, Play It Forward, that's going to really help raise money and help the health of the community through donating to different activities, sports-related things like people who can't afford to play hockey. It'll help them, all kinds of things. So you can look that up. It's brand new. It's Play It Forward, a new charity started by Sudbury Wolves Sports and Entertainment Group. Speaking of that, the Wolves will be in action this Friday here at the arena. You can get your tickets online at Sudbury, greatersudbury.ca/tickets. And Friday's game, they'll host Erie. It makes for the first and only time that the Erie Otters will be visiting. They have a pretty good team. Their centerman, Brett Brissett, he's 36 points and sits 5th in the Midwest Division. And the last time these two teams played was December 2019. Long time ago, where the Wolves fell 7-4 here in Sudbury. Friday night game is also bilingual night at the Sudbury Community Arena. Experience a classic Wolves game in both Canada's official languages as the Wolves take on the Otters in English et en français. Join our game sponsor, Desjardins, for a ball toss during the second intermission in support of Canadian Blood Services. Balls can be purchased at Desjardins tables in the lower lobby and in the club area. Don't forget to pick up a pair of Desjardins light sticks on your way to the door while supplies last. Go Wolves, go. Allez, les Wolves, allez. Yeah, I'm trying here with the French. I really should have learned French by now. It is something that weighs heavily on me. Tickets are now on sale for Friday's game at greatersudbury.ca/tickets and at the Sudbury Arena box office. And to see the full list of themes and the lineup for home games, just visit the Sudbury Wolves website and you can see that. Following Friday's game, the Wolves head to Niagara to face the Ice Dogs 2 p.m. on Sunday. Monday, Family Day, the Wolves head to Peterborough for a Family Day afternoon. Puck drop at 2:05. So you have the Wolves playing 2:05 in Peterborough. You have the 5 who will be in town here, the Sudbury 5, after their trip to Newfoundland. They'll be back, I believe, to play the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans here on Monday afternoon, Family Day. So a lot of sports going on over this Family Day weekend. And yes, it'll be Family Day on Monday, in case you haven't heard. Long weekend. That is your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by SudburySports.com. That is Randy Pascal. He is that Sudbury Sports guy, and SudburySports.com is his website for everything Sudbury Sports. Visit SudburySports.com. We'll be back with more headlines and your comments, and hopefully Natalie Labby, she's yet to join us, and also Billy is yet to be joining us as well. So hopefully they'll both be on. But either way, we'll get through the show, and we'll have a great show regardless. We'll be back right after this. Okay, and here we are back, and we'll anxiously wait for our co-host and our guest today. It is live. It's a volunteer run show. We have a studio that basically is pretty unique. I don't think there's anything else like it. It's iPads, laptops, desktops, mixers, little podcast type devices. There's software that allows us to stream online, and then also software that allows us to get on the CKLU computer and broadcast. So there's lots of stuff going on here, lots of stuff to take care of, and it looks like we do have Billy here this morning. So I'm going to get him on and introduce Billy. How are you doing today, Billy?
Good. Sorry about that.
You don't have to be sorry.
Dropped in.
That's okay. That's good, actually.
Well, it was good at the time, but then when you finally get up, it's
it's scrambling like eggs.
There's the scrambling. There's the guilt. There's was it worth
guilt?
it? Hard to say.
It will be worth it, and let's say you can totally dispel of all the guilt if you do have guilt. No reason for guilt.
Well, that's so nice. Thanks.
Yeah, no, this is good, and people are glad to have you on, including David, and he's just chiming in here to make sure to stay safe. Yes,
morning,
as usual. Cliff, he's been on the road since 3:30 this morning. Nothing wrong with the roads at the moment. a little slick where there's some snow left near the shoulder. Other than that, and on the side roads, other than that, they're clear. Good morning, Tracy. Thanks for being with us this morning. And Chris, also, great to have you here with us. And Pauline, très bien. Oh, for my French. Yeah, thank you. I try. And I was trying to speak French this morning, Billy, and I think I did okay. I don't think I did great because the Wolves Friday game, as you know, is bilingual night. So you should brush up on your French before going into the arena.
I took a lot of French classes through school.
Good.
It's weird. I think I plateaued somewhere around grade 3 or 4, though.
That's funny. You know, I started French
Venezia
class.
and Salle de Bain, those two stick with me. I got those two down pat.
Une règle, un stylo. I remember all those. Une gomme. Like I could name all the things in my pencil case. But I think I should have progressed too. But I think I started my French in grade 4, in the 4th grade, if you're American.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us. We were just doing a little bit of parlaying this morning in anticipation of the Wolves bilingual night this Friday against
Wolves
the
is
Erie
in
Otters.
French?
They just say Wolves.
Do they? Yeah.
Because
Even,
that's, I guess, the
Parisian
name of
French?
No, well, the thing is, if it's the name of a team, right? Like the Toronto Maple Leafs,
Oh, okay.
you don't then translate it into French, even though Maple Leaf it has a French word. It's because
Right.
So I guess I don't know what wolf is, or wolves, because I didn't get that far. I didn't get out of my pencil case. Other than maybe bathroom and kitchen and things like that. But you know what? I really am going to learn French. Like before I move on from this life, you'll see me speaking French. I can guarantee you that. I have a friend. I have a friend of mine. I went out for lunch with him the other day. And speaking of the Wolves, the entire Wolves organization, well, at least the players, all came in for sushi while we were having sushi. Sat next to us, and they ate more than I could eat even. And my friend that I was with, he was English and learned French in his later years. So I asked him, I said, hey, can you tutor me? And he goes, why would I tutor you? I'm not French. I said, exactly. I said, that's exactly why I want you to tutor me. Because how to, what it was like to go from being entirely English to learning French. And he's very fluent in French. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a lot of the best teachers are people who sort of like went through the process,
Exactly.
That's why. Yeah.
And I tried getting tutoring from people that were French, but the answer I got was because I kept asking why. So why is this like this? What's the reason for, because I wanted to understand it, to learn it. And they just said those are
just the rules.
That's just the way it is. And I was like, okay, really? It's just the way it is. You just have to memorize it. I was like, okay, well, I ain't learning it then this way because I need something to base my learning on, kind of thing.
Yeah. I always thought the masculine feminine aspect of objects was interesting. It's like who decided that? And like over life, you kind of get a sense that, it does kind of make sense. But, when you're young and you first ask that question, there's really no good, clear answer to it, I find.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say something now, and it's just a joke, but you'd think the French language would be in a conundrum these days, right? Because there's so many more genders, they'd have to redefine all of their words over and above masculine and feminine, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure
I
a joke
felt like
can come
I
out
was
of that
hitting
somewhere.
a volleyball there, just kind of lobbing it up in the air.
Anyways, and again, with all due respect for anyone who identifies with any particular gender, it's just it is a fact, though it is still a joke at the same time that there are only masculine and feminine words in the French language. But however, I guess at the time they didn't recognize that there were more than just those two. However, I digress, and from one subject to another while we wait for Natalie to come on. Hopefully, there's no issue with her coming on. We'll see here. The first story, Billy, we're going to dive right in because we're going to save the local topics for Natalie, and usually that's what we start with. But I thought this was interesting, and you would appreciate this one, and you probably didn't have time to read it this morning, but here's the headline. Ontario Appeals Court rules against anti-vaccine mother. So that's the headline. Court determines that an earlier judge's decision to allow internet information as evidence was wrong and has now granted the father the right, as the only person allowed to discuss vaccinations with his children. Thoughts on that?
What can you say?
So do you think that's interesting that at first there was a court that said, yeah, the information on the internet, due to that, the mom can kind of discuss vaccines with her child, right? But now Ontario Superior Court of Justice has ruled that an Ontario judge was wrong. So this was appealed to the Superior Court of Justice. It ruled that an Ontario judge was wrong to rely on internet-based misinformation that a mother decision-making authority for refusing to get the vaccines for her two youngest children, aged 10 and 12. The case is referred to as JN and CG, as the mother versus the father. Both are currently separated. I would think so. The Court of Appeal has overturned the decision made last year by Superior Court Justice Alex Pizarretz. The appeal court Justice Jonathan George has also given the decision-making authority to the father. The decision does not mean that the children must get a vaccination. It means that the law is allowing the father the sole right to discuss the vaccine option with his children. What questions come to your mind after hearing this?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind, I did notice like the wording of that article seemed like a little bit, not too sure of the word for it, but I think in the future this is going to be and it largely depends what history sort of writes about this era. If this is going to be one of those things where it's like, well, the government shouldn't be going that far into people's, in between people and their children kind of thing. So.
Oh, okay. Yep. So the courts are ruling here what a mother can and cannot discuss with her children. So is that some kind of ethical?
Actually, the first thing I thought of, if I may, is from a lawyer standpoint, and they talk about internet-based misinformation, but I think there's probably an argument that a huge deal of the information, as it's sort of revealed now, was not necessarily just coming from the corners of the internet.
Yeah, I think so. It just ends up on the internet, right? Like everything can. And it looks like Natalie's joining us now. So hopefully we didn't have a chance to troubleshoot sound and all that stuff, but I'm crossing both my fingers on both hands to see if everything's going to work. It sounds like it probably is going to. Good morning, Natalie. How are you doing?
Good morning, AJ and Billy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it is working fantabulously. So that's awesome. So thanks for joining us. We started off with one of the stories we had, and we have four 4 locally based stories that we thought we might get you to kind of chime in on, just because they're local stories, and obviously you would have some perspective on those. But I just wanted to ask you, since we haven't talked since you've been elected, I want to say congratulations on air, first of all, for being elected Ward 7 councillor in Greater Sudbury.
Thank you.
And how have you found it so far? Have you been surprised by any things, or how's been the transition?
It's been a really good transition. As you know, just from our previous interview, I had been on municipal council up in Northwestern Ontario back in 2010. So, I had a little bit of a catapult into the life of politics. And it's been a really great transition so far. I feel like the new council, as much as there's only 3 new councillors and a new mayor, have been working very well together. As much as there's only 4 of us, we're integrating very well into the group dynamics. And it's definitely been a positive transition to have so many reelected as well, just to give us the background on certain issues that we're still going to have to deal with. For instance, this year's budget and other things that are kind of outstanding over the last couple of years that are going to be resurfacing. So it's been a very positive experience so far. The staff have been wonderful to integrate us into learning about all the departments and everyone's role and all of that. The most surprising thing, I think, not really surprising, but it's definitely more work than what's required of you in a small community, because there's far more people with, I don't even want to just say issues, or complaints, just things that need, they have questions about, or things that, of course, things are cyclical, like potholes and snow removal and things like that. So it's a little bit harder for me, just because I work full time as well, and just to kind of juggle the 2 jobs. But it's going really well, positive overall.
So you're finding a way to have your full-time job, and then, like you said, the most surprising thing was there's a lot more work than what you've done previously in similar roles in other jurisdictions.
Absolutely.
So you're on a few boards here and committees: Emergency Services Committee, Community and Emergency Services Committee, the Conservation Sudbury Board, the Greater Sudbury Utilities and subsidiary boards, Greater Sudbury Community Development Corporation Board. Now, this is just to show, when you said how busy you are, like, this just goes to show that, right? You're also on Downtown Sudbury Business Improvement, the BIA Board of Management, Older Adult Advisory Panel, and you do have some previous experience there, and so it makes sense. Museum and Heritage Advisory Panel. Now, were you on some of these previously and you're just continuing them, or are all these new?
They're all new because I was elected. So,
okay.
And the process for that is that there's many subsidiary type of committees under the council. And we had a nominating council meeting specifically for that. And then as peers, we would nominate each other to different boards and committees. And we had the opportunity to say yes, or, I respectfully decline. And we didn't really have to say the reasons. So for myself, you can sit on as many or as little committees as you want as an elected official. These are committees that required a certain quota of councillors to sit on. And if you go back on a council meeting, you would see that I'm asking and just double checking what time of the day, what day of the week, because I didn't want to overburden myself, and wanted to, as much as I have stability with my full-time career, I wanted to make sure that I could attend and participate in those meetings, because it's important. It goes beyond just putting your name on a list. You want to be a contributing member to those meetings and bring some fulsome content and contribute on that level. So, those are the ones that I was nominated to, and the ones that I chose to sit on.
Great. And so let's just dive right in then with some of the top stories. I know I want to get to the whole emergency services thing, because that's huge. There was a report that was supposed to come out before the election, which is kind of controversial. And then Do you know some of the reasons why they were holding that back? And because a lot of people, had all kinds of theories and things. So there was a report that was supposed to come out, didn't come out until later, and now we're having to take some action. Can you speak to the whole emergency services issue that we have in town here?
Sure. So from 2017, there was the initial fire stations review, that proposal that came out. It was quite controversial at that time. And since that time, there's been some councillors that have been very vocal about it, in opposition of it. It resurfaced itself again last year because some of those councillors realized that the fire chief was in receipt of the newest proposal for the consultant. So unfortunately, there was some personal, professional choice that was made at the time, despite the fact that some of the councillors really wanted it released prior to the election. From what I've read in the paper and from what I've understand from what was shared at a council meeting very briefly, is that there was some negotiations with one or two of the unions that have still not been resolved, and they just didn't want that to interfere with that process. It's not up to me to decipher whether or not that's completely accurate or if there's other things behind that. But
No,
we're where we're at right now. So I'll take you back to December when we had one of our very first council meetings, and the consultant from ORH from Britain presented the proposal for either amalgamating or closing down certain fire stations across the city. And at that time, I was under a bit of pressure from my residents, especially in Skeed, that were very concerned. And during that meeting, I got a text from a resident saying, we've got a petition that's circling and we need your help on this. You need to be our voice. And at that point, I didn't know that I was even asked for a public consultation, but I was framing my thoughts around what was being shared and the questions that were being asked by my colleagues around the table. And I allowed the mayor, I waited for the mayor to kind of ask the question a few times just to make sure that my colleagues all had a chance to say what they needed to say about the topic. And under Robert's Rules of Order, once you call for a deferral, there's no more debate. So I wanted to be mindful of that and strategic, because if you start off with something like that and you don't give your peers a chance to speak, then you're probably not going to get a good buy-in or their vote on moving forward with your idea. So again, it wasn't really planned, and I didn't really think at the time, because it had been requested so many times in the past few years to have a proper public consultation on this, that it would even be approved. So I'm very thankful to my colleagues for allowing this process, and I've been working diligently with staff to put forward what the open house process is going to look like. And I'm really also proud of several of the councillors, returning and new, that have stepped up to go and actually look at these fire stations in person and get a better understanding beyond what's on paper for us, just to see with our own eyes what are the conditions of these stations. Mm-hmm. Because this proposal goes beyond asset management. It's about response times, and it's also about community safety.
Correct. And I think that's what a lot of people are concerned with. And surprisingly, I think what's come up the most is the insurance costs with people. Like, so if you don't have a fire hall within so many kilometers of your property, your insurance automatically goes up. So now these residents are concerned their insurance are going to go up. They're still paying the same amount of taxes. And then their quality of services also go down. So the quality of service, the response time goes down, their insurance goes up, but their taxes stay the same. And so, but I guess this is all factored into the decision making, obviously. And what's been your kind of feeling on the feedback from the community as you're asking for them to chime in here? Are you getting a lot of people?
Yeah, I have a lot of phone calls, Facebook messages. It goes from even that evening, getting private messages from volunteer firefighters saying, thank you for speaking up on our behalf. And I really didn't understand at that time just the scope of how important this issue is to so many people and for different reasons. So specifically to Skeed, because I know that's one of the things you've been talking about is in the paper, these articles. Residents there are definitely worried about their house insurance. Under what's called the Fire Underwriters Survey, the city provides information to that organization on an annual basis so that it can be evaluated and be fair and current on what the situation is with the number of full-time firefighters, volunteer firefighters, proximity to fire hydrants, how far away they are from a fire station, which is standard would be 8 kilometers, that kind of thing. So what's been shared at council meetings so far from our lead staff in that regard is that under the FUS, the FUS, Skeed residents should already be paying the highest price. But from their perspective, for people have been calling their underwriters and their insurance, and they're getting a different story. So they're being told, no, if this decision comes through, you're going to realize between another $800 to $1,200 a year on top of what you're already paying for house insurance. So naturally, that's making them be up in arms. Now, this is their take. This is not me. This is me just conveying what people have been talking to me about. So I think that the open house process is going to be an important one because we've guaranteed that people who are experts in this field are going to be able to provide answers that are accurate, and maybe to displace some of the misunderstanding about fire response and what's currently in place, because people are concentrated on the building itself. And in Skeed, for instance, they only have one volunteer firefighter right now assigned. And under the guidelines of the province and fire safety regulations, we need to, I can't remember the acronym of what it's called, but we need to have at least 16 volunteer firefighters in order for it to stay an active station. So volunteer recruitment is another layer of this onion, Aaron, because it's very multi-layered. It's not just about asset management. It's also about limitations on training opportunities for volunteer firefighters who have full-time careers and maybe a spouse that works and children and activities that they need to juggle. So on top of the original 300 hours of training that they need to commit to in order to even be to jump in a truck to go to a call, they would now have an extra 100 or even an extra 150 hours of a year, depending on if they wanted to specialize in auto extrication or water rescue. All of these things are out of the hands of our city. And if you watch the W5 expose, it recognized and brought light to the fact that whether you're a small rural community or a city, everyone's struggling. Councillor Lapierre actually shared a link last week on his personal Facebook page that talks about the challenges that the city of Hamilton is also facing with volunteer recruitment. So, I've also read comments and heard back from full-time firefighters and volunteer firefighters that the process and timing and availability of training is probably not the best option and actually deters some people from being able or prohibits them from being able to maximize their training opportunities. So that's another layer of it that we need to kind of look at. But overall, I think the open house process is going to be one where people can participate, ask their questions, get answers, and submit them as well online to the Over to You section on our city website so that everything is documented about the concerns before we move forward with making a decision. And certainly I feel that it's not prudent or fiscally responsible to be able to sustain and keep all 24 stations. And that is my opinion as well. not from anyone swaying my opinion, but actually from going firsthand and seeing the situation with my own eyes. And I think that's important for us as community leaders. And it's not to put any pressure or kind of optics on our staff that they're not doing their job. I just feel like if we're going to make decisions, it should be an entire all sides of everything that we need to experience ourselves before we can make it, especially an important decision like this one.
I think by allowing the public to be part of this and then also allowing them to see the facts, I think the answer, the writing will be on the wall as to what the best decision is to be made. And I do believe our community will appreciate that. Billy, do you have any questions concerning this particular issue before we move on?
Are you talking to me or Billy?
Billy, I guess maybe I cut out. Billy, do you have any questions for Natalie?
Not really, but just to add to the last one there, I think, if the cost was, that's always the big thing too. People, if they see the number in front of them where it's like, okay, to fix up the stations, to get them is going to be this much, it's going to mean this much more to your taxes, offsetting the insurance. And I guess really the decisions, I think, really come down in a lot of ways to the numbers. Like you said, that was very insightful about a lot of the public safety stuff, and there's community aspects to it. But I think, once the information is laid out, then I think the debate probably gets a lot more concise.
Yeah.
And, I just want to add to that. Currently, there are despite the fact that there's 2 stations, Vermilion and Skeed, that are not operational and not completely closed down, but definitely part of this process, they're not without emergency response. Even in the core of the city, when there's an accident or the fire department needs to be dispatched, they need to make sure that there's sometimes 2 or 3 fire stations that attend to a call, because they want to make sure they have enough bodies to fight that fire. They don't want to put themselves at risk, and they also want to make sure that they're arriving with the adequate equipment and personnel to address that emergency. So that's in place in the core of the city, and it's also in place in the rural communities as well. So there are no communities that are currently without services, despite the lower amount of or the lesser amount of volunteers at certain stations. So, for instance, in Cape Breton, there's 16 volunteer firefighters at that location. Cape Breton is not part of the proposal to actually close. It's a very viable station. They're talking about merging the paramedic services into that location just for efficiency. But if there was a call for a fire or an emergency in Cape Breton or anywhere, on average, you're looking at 2.5 people, volunteers, that are able to even respond to that emergency, because they're volunteers and they're not just there waiting as full-time firefighters would be. So they're getting the call, but just because you've got 16 people doesn't mean all 16 people are available to respond to that emergency. So our staff does triages. Where is the next station? Where do we have people available? And they dispatch them as backup. So I just wanted to reiterate that there's no communities. It might take a little bit longer, and yes, that is a factor. But currently, under this model, multiple stations are dispatched no matter what the situation is.
Now, we have a couple of comments here. One of them is a statement. It's not really a question. There's a couple of questions, but Cliff says basically, are these so-called experts going to pay the citizens higher insurance premiums after the insurance goes up, or just say too bad? So that's basically just the sour kind of feeling, I think, that we've been hearing from a lot of citizens, right, of our community in this regard. And I think you've kind of spoken to that already, but yeah, there is this kind of feeling here. I think you've kind of covered that already. Here's one thing we haven't brought up yet, though. So Belinda says, is the COVID mandatory vaccination a requirement? I know people that were volunteers in the fire department left because of this. So is it still a mandatory requirement for volunteer firefighters to be indeed vaccinated?
It is still part of the recruitment process. It's still very much part of any staff, including council, to have vaccination status. Now, that could change. I've seen that other communities are kind of backpedaling from that agreement now. And I did have a very candid conversation with our CAO about that and the repercussions over that. Part of my research in all of this has asked how many volunteer firefighters did we lose through that decision?
Good
and
question.
it's approximately 40.
And
So
does
that's
that
a
make
lot.
that makes an impact, right?
It really
40?
does.
It does,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's funny how the news doesn't really, like, you've watched this show, you listen to this show quite a bit, and you know that basically that's a sore spot for me, how news kind of just leaves out things a lot of times, and they don't really mention the health crisis we have in the province, in the country, in the world, basically in a lot of areas, but they'd never mention that we've lost such a huge amount of our workers because of the mandatory the mandates for vaccinations. So they just leave that out. They don't even mention. Well, and I like the fact that you just went ahead and asked how many did we lose. I think that hasn't been part of our conversations, just to know the facts about it. And did that make a huge impact? And if we reverse that, could we reverse it? Would it like, what are the risks if we reduce it? Is it worth the risk? Other communities,
Right.
can we look at other communities? Are there people dropping like flies because they dropped that mandate? Like, we'll just look. It's okay. No, they're right beside us in North Bay. Let's look at how. Oh wait, what's the death toll since they dropped the mandate? Oh, there's no change. So why are we still doing that? That's the way I think. So that's not a question for
Yeah.
you. It's just an observation.
So when I look at when I hear a statement or read a report, and it says, we're ongoing recruiting for volunteer firefighters. We need at least, I don't know, it's 100, 150 firefighters. Because there's all these reasons why it's getting harder to recruit them. And then to me, I'm like, okay, but how did we lose some during COVID? What's that all about? And I asked that question and I got the answer right away. So, I think it's for transparency. It's important for people to know those things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate that. And thank you very much for being that kind of counselor. Miles says, so he wants to attend the meetings, but do you have a way that people can be in attendance online at the open houses?
I don't think that there may be, because, and I can look into that, Miles. I think it's a good option. For instance, when we had our open house about the housing situation, the housing grants and opportunities, a few weeks ago, we had that with the mayor and some of our key staff and MP Mark Serre in Capriol. Our communications team set up a virtual camera so that people could watch online through the city's website. So in that kind of situation, a meeting where people are speaking and talking, it would work. But for the open house, it's really a way for people to come and see firsthand what those stations look like. So you, as much as you could be part and just kind of see what's going on, there's really not going to be formal speaking happening. There's going to be people asking and approaching, like at a trade show type of thing, where it's a come and go, and asking your questions formally to each of those people. So if you're not able to go to the open house in your area, there's going to be several across the city. So you might not be able to go to the one that affects your ward specifically or your community, but there's going to be many options. And as well, I'm really encouraging people to participate in the over to you section of the website as well, so that your question is not lost in the shuffle. It's important to ask it in person, get the answers, and then follow up on the over to you so that we can summarize all of the people's concerns and questions, as well as a written log of things that people are concerned about.
And he's also wondering if he could just watch, even if it's not to participate, just to see. And then if he does have any of these questions, then he can get them through at some other time. So will they be somewhat recorded and put up so people can see them, or are they just come in and watch, as far as you know at this point?
As far as I know, I don't think that there's that option, but
Okay.
It's not to say that it can't be part of it. So
Okay.
I'm glad that he brought that question up, because I can definitely put that forward to our team in communications. We definitely have the technology to make it happen.
Definitely, yes, which is good, and that's what I appreciate about what's happening here. A lot of people were saying there's not much transparency. They find out about these meetings at the last minute. I know Nick was ranting about that quite a bit before that, but it seems like since the new council, there's been a lot more communication with the public and a lot more heads up time. Meetings are kind of posted on social media a lot more in advance and things. So far, so good as far as I can see in that regard. So thank you for doing
and
that.
you know, Aaron, just to speak to that, I think it matters when you have the right people in place. Like, I really have to give kudos to the mayor's office. The staff there are just rock stars. Like, they're so amazing. And you know, I think when you've got solid leadership, a positive energy in leadership, it really resonates throughout the entire building from the top down. And I've been hearing that from staff, that they just feel like there's a new sense of optimism. And when people feel that way about doing their jobs, you're going to get a better response from them in their jobs on a daily basis. So it really does start with some really positive leadership and a good team in place. So, you know, we're still very new, but the focus is to make sure that there's a lot more opportunities for engagement and letting the public know that, you know, the mayor, especially as our ambassador and our face of our city, is out there and active in so many different ways. So I think that that's a very positive thing. But it's not for a lack of our communications team, our city Facebook page, Twitter. Like, they're very, very active, and our city website is very comprehensive, to the point where it's almost hard to find information.
I was going to say it could be too comprehensive. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Find it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's there. So, you know, if you're looking for specific information, I encourage people to reach out to your city councilor to help you source that information, because it's there.
Now there's some people that are going to take a while to get converted, because there's a lot of sour taste in a lot of people's mouths with the city in the past. And as you know, with this election, it was a little messy with that. People are frustrated with the city. And Cliff, just if you want to read his comments a little later, it doesn't seem too hopeful that things will change, and neither does Jerome. Even if the new mayor is here, he's just there to kind of perpetuate what's been done in the past. But definitely the future will tell whether that is true or not. There's one thing, though, that I do need to bring up, and there's not enough time to really give it its due, but it probably came up at the Azilda open house or whatever that was just this past week or so. A lot of people were talking about what's called 15-minute cities. Have you heard anything about this? And if you have, we only have about 2 minutes left, so that doesn't give it much time. But it seems to me a lot of the viewers have been texting me, hey, have you heard this? Why don't you talk about this? And so I looked a little bit into it. Seems like we've signed up for this initiative to kind of test out this particular 15-minute city that the federal government has kind of put out as some kind of a pilot or something. Can you speak to that at all? Do you know anything about that?
I didn't know until I read the article, to be honest. And I think that it was an honest answer from the mayor to know that, I guess, these things are like, you know, council's job is about policy, and our only staff member is our CAO. So we really shouldn't be taking a role in micromanaging other aspects of the operations. And that's really tough sometimes, because people will come to us and identify certain people, or, you know, but we've got a chain of command that we really want to respect. So without going into it, I know that we, you know, those of us that are paying attention are asking some questions, but it's not something that we would have especially as newly elected, perhaps the re-elected ones would have known about this. It might be something that council had to be part of at some point in time as a discussion. I was very diligent in participating virtually over the past few years for council meetings, and it's not a topic that I recall. Not to say that it didn't happen. So stay tuned for more information, because we've been getting some emails myself for sure. So if I have, I know that the rest of my colleagues are probably getting questions from folks too. So definitely when we know a little bit more, I feel that the mayor, because he was part of that meeting, would probably issue a statement of some sort. But he was just being honest with saying he really didn't know. And I think that that's a really good sign of a leader as well. Just saying, I don't know, but I'm going to try and get the answers for you.
And it seems like Miles is agreeing with you about the communication from the city. Seems to be getting a lot better from city employees as well. He says IT has been very helpful, individual employees, and they're kind of being more transparent and sharing things with people. So
and you know what, right before we close, Aaron, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I mean, I'm not the official spokesperson. I know you called me to talk about my motion and with the fire department. But 311 is an excellent way to keep track of issues going on in our city. And I think that it's been, from my understanding, from when I watch social media comments like, oh, I had to call 311. Well, I had to call 311. Yes. And how lucky are we that we have that technology and that system in place, because there's a lot of municipalities that don't. And our managers actually meet every week to review all of the calls from 311. There's statistics there of, calls that have been completed. Are they outstanding? Whose desk is it on? Whose responsibility is it? What's the status on that? For efficiency's sake, similar to what they would do in a hospital setting when they're triaging and how long it takes to get someone through emerge. It's the same type of reporting system. So it's keeping people accountable at all levels of our staff. And the person who calls 311 will be given a reference number. They will also ask you, do you want a call back? And you can ask for a call back and you're going to get a call back. So I really hope that people see 311 as a positive thing. We don't have enough staff to go around. As much as we have lots of staff, it's still not enough to be having our eyes and ears on the ground in all aspects of all areas of our vast city. So we're looking to all of our residents to let us know if there's an area of where there's a transit station that needs to be shoveled or something, any of those things, please let us know through the 311. And you don't have to stay online for a long time if you're in queue. You can actually just email 311@greatersudbury.ca and you're going to get the same response, and you're going to get a reference number, and it's going to be logged the same way. So for people who are at work saying, I don't have time to be online with 311 on this phone call,
just send an email. That's right.
They make it very easy. Right. So I think that's what I'd like to just end with.
Cool. Yeah. And then looks like Belinda just said if they are able to have public town halls on the idea of the smart cities, which is in line with the 15-minute city as well, that would be certainly helpful as well, just to let everybody know in the future. That's just something from Belinda. But thank you very much, Natalie. Really appreciate you being on the show today, and we want to have you again soon. So hopefully you're able to join us soon.
Absolutely.
Well.
And, as much as there's some other counselors that are new, feel free to reach out to all of us. If there's certain issues, whether they're an avid listener or a watcher, reach out to them and see if they'd like to be part of this as well. I think, it's definitely a team effort, and I want to encourage that. Everyone's got different things going on in their wards, and obviously some are going to be highlighted more than others depending on the time of year or what's going on at council meetings.
Well, it makes sense to look at what committees they're in and then keep the conversation to those subjects, because they don't know more about those subjects. So that's a great suggestion, and we will definitely do that. So thanks, Natalie, for being on today. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Billy.
Bye, guys.
Stay tuned now for your Shot Daily on CKLU. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Ciao.
Talk on the morning shift.